Friday, probably.
No, it come before Friday.
Okay, the hour is upon us. We'll start the property meeting for April 14th, 2025. Call the meeting to order. Be roll call, dear. You're gonna go with it? You can go, Dick.
Renee Lyon. Robert Becker.
Yes.
Dick Miller. Ron Seisha.
Yes.
Richard Anderson.
Yes.
That's 3 out of 5.
3 present, 2 absent. We have a 10-item agenda. Need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Doc. Second by Richard. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Okay, everybody get the minutes from the previous meeting. Any corrections, additions? If not, I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Richard, seconded by Doc. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Next up, we have the members of the public who will have a 15-minute block of time to comment on today's agenda items. Members may be present in person or call in to make such comments. To comment by telephone, please call 715-538-1894. Public comment may be extended or curtailed at the discretion of the committee or board chair and after advisement by this committee board. We'll open it up now, and then we'll leave it. You can open up yours, Dan.
Okay. At this point, I will call the exec finance meeting of April 14th to order. I'm looking for confirmation of the open meeting laws requirements from Mary. She's certifying, correct? Okay. We have an 8-item agenda. First of all, I should check, we are all committee members are present. So a motion to approve the agenda, 8-item agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Also, we have the 15-minute block of time for the public to comment on today's agenda items. I've talked to a couple members. The phone-in part, I think we're going to just remove for today because of the joint meeting and time, whatever. But is there anybody in our audience wishing to speak to our agenda today? Seeing none, we will close that out and move on. Okay, the next item is to review, discuss, and take action on the remodel bids, which I believe we now turn it over to Rebecca.
Turn it over to me.
There you go. Okay, well,
We'll start with her.
didn't know if I had the authority to do that.
All right, good morning, everyone. I gave you 3 handouts. Before we get into the handouts, I want to talk a little bit about plan approval. So the reason we're before you on the 14th was that back in January, Venture submitted the documents to the state. I don't remember the exact date when they got feedback back from the state, but because there was significant changes in the design from when we did it, if you can believe it, we've been working on this for 3 years, right? So we've resubmitted it to the state a couple of times. And because there was so many different changes, the state asked them to resubmit it, which they did. And that's when we got the review date of April 10th. So it was the last week in March, Venture checked in with the state to find out what the status was. They were notified that it was going to have to be sent to a different reviewer and that the review date was now going to be May 12th. So there was correspondence between Venture and the state, and they stated that they would get the coordination completed and that we would have state review yet last week. As of Friday, we don't have state approval, but we do have a call from the state into Venture. There was no voicemail. So that leads me to believe that there are some changes or questions that need to be answered between Venture and the state before we're going to get conditional approval, okay? That does come into play as we talk about what our next steps are here, but I want you to know where that is. We do not have conditional approval yet from the state, but there has been some correspondence back and forth between Venture and the state, and I'm hopeful that we get it this week. I was hoping I would have that before today, but we do not. So with that said, the way that we went about bidding the project, so as those that are on exec finance may not know, but back in December, we revisited our agreement with the county to be your construction manager as an agent. And as that construction manager as an agent, we provide you with the administration staff to be able to oversee and manage your project on your behalf. And then what we do is we put the project out for bids. So everything that would be bricks and mortar, all the scope that would be done on that work is done in different bid packages. So this package here that has the front cover there that says bid tabulation are the bids that we received, okay? So we'll go through each one of these, but the way that this works is that this is only for them to be able to perform this category of work. A contractor can come in and bid all of them if they want, or a contractor can come in and bid just one of them. And those bids are open publicly. What happened with our bid opening is when we had our last property meeting, we identified that there may be a couple of committee members there. So therefore, we had to notify it as a public meeting. We didn't get the notification out in time, so we had to delay the bid opening by 2 days. So what happened was the bids were received by all the bidders. We were actually here at 2 o'clock. I was on my way here, and we were told because to align with county policy, we had to wait 2 days. So what happened was all of those bids were submitted to the clerk's office. They were stamped and signed as to when they were received, and they stayed in the county's possession until we had the bid opening that was 2 days later. So the bid date, I believe, was on a Tuesday. We did not open them up until, was it a Thursday? Thursday morning, okay? So property committee members that were there, Dick Miller read them aloud. I believe Rich was there. You were here too, Doc, right? I don't know if Renee wasn't there and Audie wasn't there, but we were there, okay? So what you have on this bid tabulation is what was read aloud, and that's the way that bid process shook out, okay? So let's go through the list here. Bid category 6, which is the general construction package, was bid by 3 contractors. We were one of them, Jarowski was the other one, and Fowler Hammer was the other one, okay? So the way we broke this down is that there's a base bid of work, and this base bid of work that's included in this bid package is basically the general demolition, all of the studs and drywall, all of the doors and hardware, all of the floorings, and all of the ceilings, okay? That comes into play because we did have bid categories for floorings and ceilings so that they could bid them separately, but that was included in our bid package that we included in what we bid from. So based on the base bids, without the alternates, and we'll get into the discussion of the alternates, Samuels was at $1,323,000, Jarowski was at $1,441,000, and Fowler and Hammer was $1,494,000, okay? Now, the premise of how you decide to select that contractor can be based on base bid, or it can be based on which alternates you select, okay? So the alternates that we broke out were for the corridors, which would be your main corridors. Venture only had it spec to be able to paint over the walls that are there. And we've got some wall covering that's on those walls, which if we paint them, more than likely, that's not gonna look the best. So we wanted an alternate to say, if we take all of that wall covering off, if we skim it so that it gets to another drywall finish, and then we paint it, what is the upcharge to do so? So you can see the difference in the values of the alternate once. Samuels was at $42,000, Jarowski was at $81,000, and Fowler and Hammer was at $107,000. Alternate number 3, in the base bid, there was no work to be done to those existing corridor floors. Now, if you go through the existing corridor floors, they're terrazzo, which terrazzo is a good long-term performing, but you've got some yellowing of your finish, you've got some cracks, you've got some things that need to be addressed in regards to give that a new shine or to refresh it. Rather than put new flooring in there, what's the cost if we come in and get that thing buffed and get the cracks done that were in there? Samuel's group number for that was $7,900. Jurowski's was $32,000, and Fowler's was $36,750. So if you take alternate 1 and 3 and you add them up, then you see the totals of what it would be if you select them. We'll get into the selection of those alternates when we get to this big page, but that just gives you an idea of what those components are. Next page of your bid tabulation is the ceilings.
Kurt,
So
I got a question for you, if you don't
Yep.
mind. Did you look at or question why those alternate bids, like, are half of what the other two guys bid? Now,
Correct.
did you go and check out why they'd be that much cheaper? I mean, I can see it maybe on $80,000, it'd be 10,000 short difference, but that's half, and both of them, it's half. Are they both comparable? I mean, are they giving us what we're supposed to get?
Yeah, so
Or are
actually,
this
we were the
cheaper
low
bid?
bidder, so what happened on why it's 42 to 81 is
Yeah.
because we had a sub number that came in for the 81 to do it in regards to refinishing that, and we've got our own crew, so productivity was different. And the 7,900 was a different contractor to be able to come in and refinish those floors, so in the patching that's there, so. the
It was
scope-
apples to apples.
Yep, the scope is consistent, correct.
Okay.
Okay, ceilings, we had a ceiling contractor, PCI, that had bid direct, $72,634. That scope was already included in bid category 6. So you'll see when we get to the bid tab, we don't have any additional ones to that, but that was a separate bid that we did get for the ceilings. The floorings was done individually by Jaguar Tile. They were at $415,230. Again, the flooring was already included in bid category 6, so those numbers would not be ones that would be accepted as you move forward with the general bid package. The plumbing number, the next one, which is bid category 22, we only got one number in that area, and that was Barton Gale. Their base bid was $57,061. Reasons for why we only got individual bidders. So when we put this out on the street, then we follow up with contractors to find out who's bidding, right? There were several responses that we got from people. Some people just didn't have the ability to bid it at the time in which it was. Others felt that it was too cut up because we actually have 8 different phases. And when it becomes 8 different phases, it becomes a mess for them and they didn't want to touch it because it's too cut up. Other comments that we got was they've already bid it multiple times. How do we even know that we're going to get awarded? And there's an investment in bidding. So there was that element that was tied into all of them. And others just didn't have the manpower to be able to do it. So we did have 2 categories where we only got 1 bid. The reason that we bid it is that we heard that there may only be 1 bid in the category. So I wanted to make sure that we had competitive numbers that were in there. That's why you see 3 bid categories in bid package number 6. This one here, obviously, we only had one bidder on the plumbing. We have qualified them, and they do have all the scope that was identified in the bid documents. Next one, I was actually pleased to see that we had decent coverage because we at one point heard that we weren't going to get any bids on this, but multiple calls were made by our team to get people to bid on this, and we did get 3. Tweet Garrett, Barton Gale, and Winona. And Winona was low, $569,400, and they do have all the scope that was covered in the bid documents that were there. And Winona has done work here on the campus as well. The next one is electrical. This was one that Jeremy actually tipped me off on, that we weren't going to get bids from a couple of contractors, and I think it was just correspondence that he had with some of the people that may be on site. So we heard that there were some bidders that we were told were going to bid it, weren't bidding it. So our team was blitzing all of the area, that the state, to get people to bid the electrical. Hudson even had told my estimator that he wasn't sure that he could bid it in time, but he did come through with a bid. The other contractors had other bids at the time and they couldn't do it, so we only did get 1 electrical bid. The electrical bid jumps out to me because this is the one that we actually blew the budget on. All of the other categories were within 1% or 2% of what we had budgeted. Bid category 6, the plumbing and the HVAC were all very close. The electrical was significantly higher. How we identified the electrical number, when we bid it the last time, our electrical number was like 459 or 469. That did not include fire alarm. So then we added fire alarm, and I believe we also added some was it duress alarms, and we also added some cameras. So when we added those cameras in there, we felt that that number should have been somewhere between 650 and 700. And when we look at the combined numbers that we get into the five-star telecom, is we were well over $1 million. So it was a significant swing in what we had budgeted. So that's all of the bid tabs in regards to how those bids were received. Now you can go to this big page and we'll explain what does the bigger picture look like.
What's the alternative on the electrical?
Oh, good question.
Alternate.
The electrical, in the base bid, there was no update to the lighting in your corridors. So Jeremy had called me during bid time, or was it before bid time, just said, hey, I want to make sure I get an option for LED replacement of those fixtures. So this is taking those, it's actually a retrofit of the units that are in there to make those LED fixtures on both your first and second floor corridors. So that's an upgrade that's in there, which again, that would be my recommendation to take it. I think all of your alternates that you have are good numbers. So I think I would advise you take them, but
Would the rebate program be listed with this, or would we be eligible for a rebate? Because that's still a pretty decent amount of money on rebates for LEDs.
I don't know how that works with you, what you already have submitted to Focus on Energy, but
Yeah, so I've had two discussions, but I can't give a dollar amount on what the rebate would be, but they would qualify for a rebate back to the county. So
And
let's say if it
that
was.
number then would come off this number in final
Well, yeah,
cost.
just like it did middle of last year when I got a check back from Focus on Energy, then I presented it back to the board and you guys put it wherever you put it.
Just wanted to clarify that.
welcome, Dick. So now we're to this big page. This big page is really the summary of the budget. So the way we broke this down is all the bid categories are listed there, 6 through 27. And you can see that the low bidders have been placed in here. So we've got low bidder for 6, 9, and 9B. There are no bidders. There's no number in there because that's already included in bid category 6. Bartongale, Winona are already there, and Hudson. The one that we didn't have a separate bid category for was for 5-star telecom. That was one of you recall, Tim had requested if he could work with vendors to get bids on that number, and that's really dealing with the low voltage cabling or the low voltage contract to be able to deal with all the connections that were tied into that. The first bid that we got from 5-star was $189,000, which was higher than what we had anticipated. Tim actually worked with them after the bid opening was done, had reduced scope in quite a few areas, and has been able to bring that number down to 131, 427. So there was a $58,000 savings on what happened with 5-star telecom. So the next line item, for those of you that weren't on property years ago, would not know what this number is about. But we have a connection to the building and testing number that when we broke through this wall over here, we ran into some structural issues that were there. It was CB 53. And we had that done under a CB to be able to be done, to be able to make the connection. So anything that was going to be done in that space was to be carried under the renovation portion of the budget. Fowler and Hammer's number came back at like $65,000 for that CB. We didn't utilize the contingency from this project to be able to utilize that. We placed and waited to put that in the budget of the renovation project. So there's a $65,000 number that's in this connection to the building. Also, what's in there is we did some asbestos, we did an asbestos survey for that building that was not taken out of the contingency because it was going to be earmarked as this budget, which was $15,000 roughly. So combined together, both of those are $80,725. Those invoices have already been paid by us to those vendors, but you, the county, were never invoiced for that work because this was something that was going to happen right away. 3 years later, we're still dealing with it. So from that component, that number is in the budget. Okay. Now, as we go down through the total that's in here, you get to your subtotal of $3,056,000. Now, General conditions, if you see this small one that I handed out to you, general conditions is a budget line item for us as a management team to be able to identify what these look like in regards to our fees as your CM that's an agent, and also the general conditions that we have to carry as a line item for a budget component. So the first page that you open to here breaks down how our fee, the 684,306, how is our fee calculated? So if you recall in regards to how our contract was identified is that we had a 1.9% CM fee for our construction phase. We had a 0.5% pre-construction fee. So that is what that bottom line item is of the $97,000. Those are that's our fee line for all of our office staff to be able to work, because the rest of them are reimbursable for those that are on site as an hourly rate. So that covers our office staff, our accounting, to be able to deal with all the administration elements that are there. My time is covered under that CM fee. All of those components are people that aren't on the job site and overseeing the work that's in there. The people that are up above, the superintendent, which would be Tad, who is here throughout the entire duration of the project, he is here full-time. That's at an hourly rate of $95 an hour. When we revisited your contract, we stayed with your same billing rates that we gave you back in 2020. So we gave you the rates, our hourly billing rates of $95 for those positions. Our 2025 rates are much larger than that, but these are based on the 2020 rates because that's when we originally talked about this project going and moving forward. So Tad's time that's in there that equates to $235,000 is for 14 months of time. We have a construction duration of 12 months, which would mean that he's going to be here full time. You ask, why is there 14 months? 14 months has to deal with the closeout element. So when the project is done, then they've got to finish with the closeout and the punch list, and also with coming back and dealing with your warranty items with everything that happens at your 11 months, okay? Kurt Schleicher, which is our senior PM that's in there. Kurt is not here full time, but he is here more than anyone else on the rest of my team. So Kurt is at the same billable rates of $95 an hour. I think we have him at 3 days or 3 or 4 days a week to be able to be assigned for the project that was here. Project administrator, that is our assistant to our PM. That's Dominic that's here in the room today. He will not be on site as much, and he's at a different rate. So what that boils down to is he'll be here for meeting minutes, for foreman's meetings, for progress meetings, and those components. Our safety director, Nick comes here once a week. And what Nick does is he actually does like a audit to come back and do a OSHA audit, and then puts together a list of components that need to be compliant. And Nick is here one time a week for the duration of the year. Our general superintendent, that would be Eric Ingstrom. Eric comes here once a week as well, and his oversight is to deal with productivity, to make sure that what we're doing on the components of staffing and everything tied back into that is consistent with what the schedule is. The gas and oil and the mobilization is getting all of our equipment here on site. It's here, and then also demobilization. The gas and oil deals with the equipment that's in here. When we start talking about forklifts and those equipments that are in here, that's that consumable for that. Daily cleaning would be having staff here, so when we get into this 8 different divisions, would be having staff here to be able to do the daily cleaning of the site, as well as all of the public spaces that are there. That's from this dust traffic and all those components that were in here. That's the staff component that's tied into that. So this is how we get to the 684,306. We'll get into where can we find changes or reductions here when we get to the end, because we're over budget, but this is how it was originally planned. This is how it was originally budgeted, and we'll get into what areas we can make some revisions on when we get to the end here. Pre-construction, or the general conditions that are on here, the next page. We've actually have a placeholder here for the building permits and the state review fee. These numbers are allowances based on what we anticipate. These will be hard numbers when we actually get a building permit. Same thing with our builder's risk. So you can kind of go down the list here. We've got to have builder's risk coverage. We'll probably get that through County Mutual again, which we did through your first phase. Reproductions would be any copies or elements that need to be done over the course of that time. Procore is our website. So part of our agreement is that we have a charge for Procore. It's based on volume and the percentage of work that goes through that. I think it's like 0.1% of whatever the project cost is. So that's the Procore element. Postage mailing, this is submittals and shipping that goes back and forth between us and the design team to be able to get our products there for their review. Snow removal allowance would be around our temporary toilets and our Connex boxes, depending on where we put that, if we have to have the snow removal allowance. Temp toilets, that should have been temp toilets and temp facilities. The material handling or forklift, that's having a forklift on site, and one of the things that's tied into is this window removal down here. When we got talking to the contractors of being able to get the equipment or all the materials up to the second floor, we're gonna remove a couple of windows. I know that's not an exciting portion to be able to do it, but it's removing them, and then we have to do a weather-tight enclosure while construction is going on, and then it's replacement of the windows. We need to have a forklift here for those contractors to be able to utilize to be able to get those materials that are up there. The final cleaning or the trash removal deals with the dumpster cost outside the demo portion that's in there. The final cleaning services, we bring in a separate group, and this would be at the end of each phase, we bring in a cleaning company to do a final clean. So that's based on a square foot cost. Our dust partitions, so in our bid category 6, we have temporary partitions to separate the phases. That's already included in bid category number 6. These dust partitions, when we start talking about the asbestos abatement, the fire alarm, and the HVAC, one of the elements that's a large scope in your HVAC is there's fire dampers that have to be put in and around your corridors. So in order to deal with the control and the containment of all the dust that would be happen there, it has to be done during business hours, so enclosures would have to be done there and HEPA units to be able to get that work done so we can continue to keep that corridor open. The same thing happens with our asbestos abatement, and we'll get into more detailed discussion on what that looks like here in a bit, and the fire alarm as well, to be able to run some of that cabling to get you occupied. And then the bottom there is subsistence and travel in our services of our staff being able to get here and back if they are out of town or if there is travel. Obviously, there's a placeholder here. This is another area where we can talk about some reductions in cost. So that's your summary of the CM fee and the general conditions. So if we take all of those bid categories and then we take our general conditions and our CM fee, we get to a number of $3,990,000. And now that does not include any of the alternates, okay? So let's just continue down the list. So one of the things that we earmarked in the contract was we wanted to separate the contingency. One would be an owner's contingency if you decided that you wanted to make changes as an owner. The other one would be the design and construction contingency, which would deal with any elements that were not picked up on the design drawings or unforeseen items that we would run into when we're opening up the building. So that number is placed here at $250,000. We had a abatement base bid, so back to that testing number that we had when we had that survey come back, they identified that there is asbestos in some of the mastic of some of the floorings. There's asbestos in some of the plumbing elbows in insulation, as well as in some of the ductwork to be able to have this. There's asbestos in all those locations. There's also asbestos listed in the plaster ceilings, okay? The plaster ceilings were an element that when we originally looked at the scope and the budget of this, the plaster ceilings is what we envisioned to be the finished ceilings in bathrooms and toilet rooms in these spaces in that area. What you actually have is you have a ceiling that is up above your mechanical and electrical that runs underneath that we believe is probably the original ceiling from the building. And it has this coating that's on there that has come back as a marker that has asbestos in there. From day one, that was an overlook on our end. We had assumed that they were in these plaster ceilings that would be open. We have the abatement contractor come in and take them out. That is not the case. further exploration, and it was Jeremy telling my team, hey, you guys might want to look at these ceilings that are up here. We need to look at this. We had our team come over here. We had the abatement contractor come over here. This ceiling that is above all of your mechanical and electrical elements has been there for a while. And anytime you penetrate that area or have to go into that space, there's a potential that asbestos may become airborne, okay? That is alternate number 4 over here, okay? So the base bid is this. If we're in a space and we open up the space and there is ductwork, there is mastic for the flooring, or if there is plumbing that has asbestos, it's there. That is how we've got down to this $90,000. The other element that we asked the abatement contractor to give us, we have 20 locations in that $90,000 for them to come in and isolate and scrape off a portion of that asbestos in that plaster ceiling if we need to hang anything in that area, okay? What is in there is you got a ceiling, and then there's, I have not seen it personally, but the way it's explained to me, there is red iron or there's a steel structure that actually supports the rest of your mechanical and electrical that's below that. So it is our goal that we don't have to get up and get into that, but we do have a placeholder of 20 locations that we would have to potentially have them scrape. In order for them to do that, they've got to wet the area down, they've got to scrape it, they've got to contain all that water, they've got to get those elements that are out of there. So the base bid, just to go over it again, if it's in spaces where we open up and we see that it's within the area that we're doing, it's the mastic on the floor, it's the plumbing elbows, and it's the ductwork insulation that's there. So all of that number, which would be the contingency line items and the base bid for the abatement, is $4,380,934. The alternate totals, as you see down along here, to explain them, the 42 obviously is the rework of the vinyl and the painting, the LED light fixtures, and then the terrazzo patch, which we've already talked about. The abatement, the allowance in number 4 is coming in, and we would have to remove all of the ductwork in the ceilings in those areas. And to explain to you the parameters of that is, it's the southern half of your existing building. So let's say like mid-building, and a southern half on either side of the corridor. That's what Eric said. Is that accurate, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's, when you walk through the.
Yeah.
So when you do walk through the older portion of the building, you'll notice there's an expansion joint in the floor halfway down the hallway. So that south was all built in the 50s, early 50s, which is where this asbestos stuff is starting to be a prominent issue. The older jail was in the 80s, the ag wing was in the 70s. It's not as big of an issue, but this is where it's present. And then just so you can get a clear picture from what Kurt was saying, basically if you took all of the ceiling tiles that you can see when you're walking down, you take those out, then you have all the mechanical elements. Above that is where you have the concrete deck, and then all of the coating that's on the bottom of that concrete deck in between the steel girders is what would need to be removed. So that's, I mean, and if someone wants to kind of see it, so you could, I have a few areas that are more accessible to see, if you're interested in that. But that's what it looks like, what he's talking about.
So how we get to 600, let me explain how we get to 600, and then it may answer some of your questions.
I have a question of Jeremy.
Oh, okay, yep.
Maybe he doesn't know. How thick is that coating are we talking about?
I'm not poking it. I haven't touched it.
Do you think it was a roll-on or a spray type of a coating?
It looks kind of like a spray, and then there's a, I don't know, it's kind of like an insulation, like a flaky insulation that's sitting on top of it. Yeah, and
I see.
it's in areas that I've worked before, in the ceilings doing things, but I've, haven't needlessly poked and prodded at that at any point in time. So, but it's older, it's gonna be flaky, you're gonna start messing with it, and then that's the reason why I brought it up to them too, is if the mechanical stuff has to get changed, then that stuff's gonna have to get touched, because the mechanical elements are attached to the ceilings in certain areas of that. I know you haven't asked yet, but eventually it'll come up. It's gonna be my recommendation when I am asked, though, is to remove everything that's there. Just for the sheer fact that whether it's myself, whoever is in this position after me, my current staff or anything else, if something were to happen above and beyond that, it's gonna have to get removed at some point in time. Removing it when there is no one in there. And we don't have to relocate offices, we're already taking the ceilings apart, we're already taking half of the mechanical down. If it's gonna have to get done, this would be the time to do it, and it is a higher cost now, but it's only gonna cost more the longer that we wait on something like that. Again, you haven't asked yet, but eventually I'm assuming someone will, and at least I'm gonna give my opinion on that while I'm up here, so.
How many square feet are we talking about? Any
I
idea?
don't know, Dick. Again, it's half that building on both sides, so it's pretty good square
The
footage.
entire ceiling.
So that's how we got, when you look at the number, it's a large number. We didn't have a document that went out to an HVAC contractor to give us a hard number on removal and replacement of that, because what has to happen, that ductwork has to come down, the ceilings have to be removed, it has to be completely sprayed with water, it has to be completely scraped off, it's got to be cleaned up, and then we come back and replace the ceilings and replace the ductwork. Okay, so this is not a bid number, this is an allowance, right? I want to stress that because we had to put a placeholder that's in here. If you ask me if I think it's high, I don't think it's high. I think it may be a little light depending on what we run into because we don't know what it's going to look like. But I understand Jeremy's recommendation. So this is the element that is the large number. We as take complete accountability. I never had that sort of scope ever in any of these budgets. We had it for dealing with the small individual components, but not taking off the massing of all of that asbestos, okay? So was never in there, and any time that we've ever bid this out, that scope has never been in there. I take ownership of that because was unaware that was there. So when we get to the bottom here, if you took all the alternates, you're at 683, 563 for the alternates, and then your bid with the alternates is 5,064,494. So how do we get closer to 3.9? Couple of elements that I'm going to recommend, and ones that are already underway. With the electrical number being significantly higher than our base bid, my first inclination would be to rebid it. But I'm not going to recommend that, because here's what's happening right now with the world of tariffs. We get correspondence from vendors all the time right now that says, we don't know, and this is how it is, that we don't know how it's going to impact us. And we've talked specifically to mechanical and electrical because it seems as though those are the ones that have the majority of the parts that are coming overseas that are being influenced right now. What I've been told is the studs and the drywall that are made stateside, they're not seeing, I'm just giving you real time of the correspondence that I'm getting. HVAC contractors are telling me that some of their vendors may have a part that's in their equipment that is overseas, and some of those vendors are only upcharging them that tariff amount on the part. Others are taking that entire unit and saying, because the part's in there, we're bumping up the costs, right? The electrical side is the same thing. Electrical side is, I'm seeing the correspondence is that those are the other ones that are really up in the air because of those electrical components that are tied into that. So with that said, there's two things. If we rebid this, and we struggled to get a bidder in electrical to begin with, because one of the comments was, they've rebid it so many times, how do I know I'm going to get awarded, right? That's number one. Number two is, if we put this out on the street right now and we have to put tariff numbers on top of it, what does that look like? And number three is, the bidder that typically bid the first time doesn't bid the second time. So we could be making the decision and go down the wrong path and get less scope for more money. So the recommendation would be, and we've already started this, to reach out to Hudson and say, are there some areas where you guys can make some recommendation to reduce the number? Meaning that find a different vendor, find a different provider, all of those components, which Hudson is working on it from what they've told us, but we have no numbers from them. Similar to the exercise that Tim just went through with 5 Star, is can we find some money? And then you're gonna ask us, how much are we gonna find, right? My answer is, I don't know what the number is, but don't anticipate that it's gonna be 6 figures. We're probably gonna find something that's less than $100,000 from them, okay? So the other elements that I would tell you from my perspective of our scope that we could look at reducing, if you go to the staffing component that's in here on my end, is that from our general superintendent, to be able to
Kurt,
reduce.
if I could on that item,
What's it?
was, I've had a 45-year history in the electrical business
Yep.
before I retired. I've seen these numbers. I agree with everything you said, and I just read an article in my contractor magazine this morning saying, beware of what tariffs could do to the industry yet.
Yep,
So
right.
I think you're on track stay with what we've got on that one.
To me, there's more unknowns than known there, and I like to stay away from the unknowns, right? So back to what we can do is, a general superintendent, I don't just want to completely hack him out of here because it's an important piece, but I would be willing to reduce that in half, right? So have him here less time than what we have anticipated that's in there. The other side, if you go to the next one that's on the general conditions, the snow removal allowance, if I can burden Jeremy to do that, I would prefer to take that out of our list, okay? So that,
I'm gonna have to go around your stuff anyway.
yes. The other part from the snow removal component is that we do have the final cleaning services. I don't know how you want to treat that. If you want your staff to do the final clean, or do we? What we did here is we had another contractor come in. I think it's important that we do that. But if you wanted to take the smaller ones and maybe we have a cleaning company do the bigger ones, that would be an area where we could find some savings in those.
So for that one there, I would say for your daily clean that's on the first one, you guys are gonna be doing that, cleaning up the sites that they're on. But for the final, because they're in such smaller phases, my staff can take care of that one. That's not a big deal, because it's only gonna be a handful of offices at a time. So
Okay,
it's-
okay. So if we're good with that, then it would be county staff doing the final cleaning. And the other one would be the subsistence and travel. And I would tell you, I still have to have travel costs in there, but there will not be hotels. There may be a few when we have adverse weather, but our travel time in this one here, I would reduce this subsistence and travel down to 20 grand rather than the 47, so that I can cover what we have for our travel components. So again, not huge numbers, but if you look at it, it'd be 25, it would be 50, 70, we picked up about $80,000 on that, right? The other element that we can look at, it would be, what do we do in regards to these alternates? You know, I think you should accept them all because the value of, I'm saying 1, 2, and 3. 4 is up for debate, I guess. I understand Jeremy's position, and I know that. It's a matter of, do you feel that that investment is worth it or not? But 1, 2, and 3, those ones are good values, and it would be worth it, so. Other
I got a
comments?
question. If this project goes through, or when it goes through, what's the timetable from the start to the finish?
A year.
1 year. I was wondering about the toilets here. That's about $9,000. We've got a service in the area that maybe we could look at.
Sure.
As well as the trash removal disposal. We've got
Sure.
2 or 3 different
Yep.
around here, so we could look at that. I think
Absolutely,
that could
yep.
probably be a savings.
And these ones here, so the temp toilets, should have said temp toilets and facilities. Those will be done with local ones. This is a budget line item. So in that temp toilets, it should have been facilities. We potentially need a Connex out there too, because what contractors are gonna wanna get their materials here and then move them around, which we don't have the space. We're not bringing a job trailer on this time, because Jeremy has already got space carved out for TAD, so we can save money on those. So we do have to have something in that line item just for a placeholder, but we will use from the local side. So,
I would think your temporary toilets too, you wouldn't need them because you've got toilets on every floor.
well, and that's a discussion.
In each section.
And that's a
So
discussion.
why would you wait?
We
Up
typically would put 2 out there, because otherwise all of our construction traffic is going and messing up the toilets, and we have been asked in occupied spaces. If we want to tell them we're not having temp toilets, and we're going to use the indoor ones, we can do that.
Nobody better complain.
What's that?
Nobody better complain about it.
Right, because it does come, because we're bringing dust, and it's a common theme that it's like, keep the construction out of occupied spaces, but.
We can utilize the jail, the old jail.
Okay.
For the restrooms.
Okay.
I still have all of the fixtures, and then there are 3 private bathrooms in there for.
Sounds good.
So.
Then we can do that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so those are areas where we could potentially reduce. Again, if that's, let's say that we picked up 80 to 90 through what we just did here, right? And Tim has already found 50-something that's there, and if we can find somewhere between 50 and 100, right, on the electrical side, we've found almost $200,000, but it's not getting you back down to the 3.9. And then the alternates are for discussion. So is there any any comments on alternates about scope? Does it make sense to do it?
Anybody else speaking up, I'll start. I think the alternates, other than that 597, that one, the number 4,
Yep.
I just don't know where we can find that much more money right now. Rebecca, you got ideas?
If I could, like, let's step through maybe where we're at as far as the funding that we
Yep.
have set aside. Is that okay to
Yep.
go into that right now, I think? So I have, I'm gonna pass out resolution, 2024, -05-02. This is the resolution that we did to designate the funds to set aside. So just so you have that number again, it's at 3.488998.18. That's the number that we set aside. I'll just let you take a look at that. Then, in our long-term financing that we worked on, our capital improvements, we did set aside $500,000. Now, during that process that we went through, it was, Brian had asked us from Ellers and saying, do we have to go right to the number as far as where we would borrow, or do we have a little bit of leeway in where we end up? So this number is actually at $700,000 that we have then set aside for building renovations out of our bonding. And I'm just So I just want you to take a look at that list again. This is what we had set aside.
The 500 something is actually 700.
It is, correct. Yep. And that should be finalized this week. So we've been working through that process, and so that should be finalized this week. So what I'm going to pass out next is a recommendation that kind of follows what Jeremy is saying, and kind of that the board has been, you made a legacy decision when you decided to do the Justice Center. And it's apparent that there's needs over on the government side, center place. And really, again, as a legacy decision, you want to make this a good project overall, is what I would say. So I'm just going to recommend, while I know that that cost is high, I think there's a way that we can do it. It's probably not something many of you might like, but again, I think it's an opportunity right now when you're opening things up, when you're in the process, you've already committed to the project. You committed to the project when you did the Justice Center, right? You committed to knowing that you needed to do renovations on the other side. Unfortunately, when you do renovations, you're opening up a can of worms because you don't know what's in the walls. And so I still have hesitations about what's still to come, but I want to talk to you about the list that you have here. And at the top, are the highway funds that we set aside for highway projects. There are 2 highway projects that cannot go through this year due to reasons that are out of our control. We can't get everything pulled together as far as from the DNR, from land acquisition issues. So what I'm suggesting, or what I would recommend, is that we take a portion of those funds and identify that for this project so that this project can be completed properly. Again, that's properly, I think, is taking care of an issue that really should be addressed right now. It is your choice, and it's a difficult choice, right? I know that roads are very important as well. I think that the committee, the overall board understands that and will understand next year as we go into these conversations again, that is still important and that we put funding for roads and that we replace funds. But I think that because the market is so uncertain right now, when we take those funds and we bond and we take money, we are guaranteeing that we're going to use those funds within 2 years. Now we're losing a whole year in that, and we are committing to that. We've got to get all those projects done next year, and yet there's a lot of unknowns out there. And so I get a little nervous in just saying that we're setting aside all of those funds for projects now that we thought we were going to do this year. We've got to put off for a whole year. We've got a timeline that we have to use those funds or that we've committed to, and that we're not using them. At the same time, we have a project that, in order to complete it in this fashion anyway, we could tap that. So I'm going to give you another, just a document that shows a breakdown of where we're at as far as the 3.488, the extra bonding that we have already set aside, 700,000. That totals 4.188988. Our base bids with alternatives is 5,122,519. That's a difference of 933,531. And I'll show you my recommendation then, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Here, I'm going to give you this. So you can see the difference there is 933,531. My recommendation is that we add an additional $250,000 to that for contingency, putting it at 1.183531. These funds, again, are already designated through our bonding. It would just be moving them from what is in roads, what would be in roads, over to this project to complete it. So in its entirety, and I'll just, we're going to be, hopefully, want you to take a look at a resolution that would allow that. And again, this is just if we would move this forward. We would be taking then the funds from our ultimate beneficiary account number that we have set aside for our bonded money that will be coming in this week under account D7M005402 at the $1,183,531 plus the $700,000 that we have already identified for that building fund. Sorry about that. So that total would be then $1,883,531. So again, But, you know, that, this is something that, a big decision, and certainly a lot to consider, whether you do this project now or not. I think the project itself, you've committed to, you know there's reasons to move that forward, a lot of reasons. Whether you know, you could pull back and say, we're just gonna do those hallways and get the hallways done between the two sides. At least that would make it connectable, right? The problem becomes, again, is that then you pull back the project, and just like we found out today, people don't want to bid on this again. And then we pull back and we hold off, and we don't see prices coming back down. Even when we were faced with COVID and a difficult time during that time, and you think about the increases that happened, to pull back on that project, we have not seen prices go back. We don't generally see that. So if tariffs are coming and they're going to increase costs, I don't see that ever coming back, right? Unfortunately, that's not something we generally see. So anyway, I just want, that's kind of where the recommendation is, but certainly it is a difficult decision and a bigger price tag. So any questions for me, I guess?
So what you're basically suggesting, recommending, is to pull $1,183,000 and change from highway construction to this.
That's correct.
Okay.
Why is there no grants out here for getting rid of that asbestos? Is there any grants out there to get rid of that asbestos? I mean, they got grants for everything else.
Yeah, I've never been a part of one where there was a grant for that, Audie. I don't know why there isn't, but I've never had one.
Rebecca, could you speak to the two projects that currently can't go through and how that's going to impact the employees in the highway department? How is that looking?
Sure. Both, and I did talk to Neil about this, so Neil knows that I am bringing this forward. So the projects that are currently sidelined out at Highway are projects that are LRIP funded, so that they have outside funding and they have different rules on them. It's not a road project that would be completed by our guys. They're going to be doing side work, preparing things and such for those projects, but it's not actual construction that they'd be doing. Maybe someone else from the Highway Committee can talk more to that, but that's basically what Neil is saying right now.
Well, yeah, but that, one of the projects is, they were going to do, I think it's a D, or I think it was. Yeah, and the engineering firm did not buy, if I remember this, John, correctly, you tell me, that they did not buy or get the right-of-ways the way they were supposed to, and they didn't acquire the land that they needed, so they have to push that project off till next year. So what Neil was planning on doing is taking this money and saving it for next year, and then apply it next year, because we have to put a substantial amount into that program, because and we don't get as much back when we do these grants and stuff from the state, because they have so many restrictions on them that we can't do some of the work. And when we do it ourselves, we generate our own funds. So he was just gonna put it off till next year and then do the project. But he was gonna not give the money up. He was gonna keep it and push it to next year. So his 5-year plan still stays on track.
I thought we were moving that D project over to X.
No, X was on there. This year, he's only spending he's only spending like $3.5 million this year. He's pushing another $1.5 million that was for D to next year.
Yeah.
So he'll have the funds there.
And just to clarify too, that he just found that out about a month ago. So our
Yeah.
last meeting is when he brought that up to us about the issues
Yeah.
with the DNR, and And I think there was a couple of sewer issues there in the right-of-way, so that's got to be looked at. The engineers had some issues with different things, so it ain't like he knew this at budget time. But he did talk about, and maybe he changed his mind, Becky, and you can relate to that, about moving County Trunk D east of Ettrick to next year, and then they were gonna work on County Trunk X in different areas of this year. That's what was my understanding to a certain degree, and then there would be some savings to go into next year for the project of D. The only question I got, if you're gonna move this 1.8 million over into this, what happens to the highway department next year? What are we gonna be borrowing then?
So you're right. Neil did not know that that was going to happen. He also expressed, he has, of course, in the past, the feeling has always been, if I'm getting money for my department, I'm not giving it up, right? And so he would say, in the past, the thought has been, if I've got this funding, I'm not going to give it up. His comment was, he understands the broader piece of what the county needs and the broader, I think those are discussions that we have had internally in talking about how we're working together, and not trying to undermine each other. And so he understands the bigger need of that. He does hope that then next year, there would be funds that would replenish that, and so that they could move forward on that project.
My question then, the way it sounds to me, he'll get the 5 million next year and he'll have, if we don't do this, he'll have another 1.5, so he'll have 6.5 million. Can he do that in 1 year?
Or we
Yes.
could maybe not borrow
could-
quite as much next year for the highway.
But he
Oh,
would
right.
be able to do it, Doc, because most of your grading, your culvert work, and most of that work is gonna be done by a private contractor because those are the
Oh, okay,
requirements
so then you just
of that
find
grant.
more help.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on the projects that got pushed back because of other issues, we don't actually have a guarantee that those are for sure going to go through by next year and that they will have all the things that they need to do it anyway, or do we?
They have the architectural plans already done up. It's the land acquisition that Chair Anderson was talking about, the sewer piece. I would expect that they should be able to get all of that completed within a year. Again, one is never certain, but, I would expect that. I guess I would go back to, my concern about, 1 year doing their capacity was at 5 million and next year being at 6.5 million does seem like, even though it's a lot, a separate contractors taking on the majority of that project, there's a lot of coordination, a lot of planning that goes through on all of that as well. Plus, I'm not understanding, I guess, how, even all the extra work that still, I've been told, that comes through county workers, how 1 year how we're doing the $3.5 million worth of work, and then this next year, 6.5 million. It just, I would wonder how that's a lot to take on, I think, but, again, those are big projects to let sit, I think.
There's wetland delineation they have to have down there too and stuff, but like I just said, that they will be, that D project, a lot of it will be done by the other contractors, so Neil has it penciled out for 5 years, like 5 million a year, and basically that's what they'd be doing next year. This year, they'd be doing like 3.7, I think he said it was. So we have enough this year, and then next year it wouldn't be any problem because they they don't do the paving on that project and they don't do much of the grading. There's only small things they can do.
Another comment, my figures have us at about 300,000 over what with the alternative bid, because we found 200. And this gives us an extra 100, so we could cut that back 300,000, correct?
Yeah, I did not
But then you're
include the
taking a chance that you have,
200, yeah, I did
Right,
not include the 200,000 that Kurt brought up.
So one of the comments I have is that when you talked about the contingency, you're talking about adding 250 to the current contingency, which I like, because when we went through the Justice Center building, there were things that came up with no doubt there's gonna be, and that number to me, the 250 seemed too small based on what we did there, and that was new build. So what they may find in the walls is another concern. I know if we move money from that highway fund, there is no guarantee that or what the highway department is gonna have next year. Obviously, there's another election next spring, but we would be working on that budget this fall with the very same people in place. And I think I would like to hope that if indeed we would reallocate some funding, that we would definitely keep that in mind, that we still need to fund those highway projects. That's all I have.
If I can, I would like to return to this abatement number, this 597. Okay, that's been sitting there since the 50s. No issue that we know of, unless somebody has. So what are the, quote, odds of the next 10 years that being a major problem? Is it sufficient to justify taking money from highway to work it? Or is this something that potentially could never become a problem? I mean, until the building's torn down.
Which one are you talking about? I'm sorry.
The 597,000 for that ceiling removal.
yeah.
Jeremy,
The alternative bid number 4.
Yep.
I think maybe Jeremy could speak to that.
And I'm not saying that you're offering an unworthy project. That's not what I'm
No,
saying.
and I get where you're coming from, because we're two
Which is
sides,
the biggest
two sides
problem, here or
of the
here?
same coin on this one. I can see you're not wanting to spend, because I get that. I do.
Yep.
And the fact that what is
No,
there
excuse
now
me, It's
is,
not, I don't want to spend, I don't want to take away from highway to do this. That's-
agreed. So, and what is there now is obviously not causing a problem. It's been there for however long. It's not hurting anyone. It's not a danger. The only ones that it would pose is to people in my staff at some point in time, potentially, which is again why I'm advocating for the removal, because it's my department that would be the one that would have to do anything with this in the future. It hasn't caused a problem as far as I know. And it could sit there for the next 5 years, it could sit there for the next 50 without being an issue. My recommendation still would be that since we are in that area, we are opening things up, we are removing stuff, would give us access to it, we can remove it while we're in there. So recommendation on my part, because it's on the selfish side for my department, is get rid of it before it becomes a problem. On the cost-effective side, it's not causing a problem at the time. And the built-in price already for asbestos removal is removing what will be needed to be removed for this project.
Right.
That's not gonna get changed, that's gonna stay the same. So that's the choice to borrow or, move money from one to the other is on you with this, but the recommendation for maintenance is to still remove that.
I would say,
David,
just, go ahead, sorry.
your question I don't know whether it was a question,
I'm not sure
your
either.
suggestion, you would rather not see that
A
removed.
question suggesting, leaning towards a
Well,
point.
can you respond to what he said?
Okay.
Or do you want to?
I'm not quite sure what the response would be. I don't disagree. It's something that would be I'll call it a good item to have out of the way. But when you compare it to the need for highway and having safe roads, is this a bigger issue than a low-quality road? Or that's kind of where I'm going with that. Which one is the bigger issue?
My question to Kurt is, are you gonna be working into that area where you're gonna disturb that area and cause trouble, and is that why you wanna remove it? Or do you wanna remove it just because of, I don't know?
There's a good portion of that space that will be untouched, but like I was saying, we've allocated and budgeted 20 areas where it would be like a spot scrape, because there is a potential where we have to put some ductwork in that courtroom space piece that's in there, that we would potentially have to do it, but that's not abating everything in that number. So again, I'm like Jeremy, I see both sides of this 100%. The best time if you're ever going to take this out, now's the time to do it. I mean, that's without a doubt. But it's a big number, right? And I want to stress again, it's an allowance on the HVAC side and the ceiling side, right? So.
I think, can I just say that, and as a reminder, that's an aging building. It's already aged. And so to not expect that there won't be problems in the future is very short-sighted. And I think, again, that if you just start to think about the roof, and when does the roof, and that's part of the inside. So again, nobody likes to do these types of projects. They're not fun, and nobody sees them. But when I look at my house, these are the types of, the types of projects, like I have to take care of the roof, I have to take care of the furnace, things that aren't real fun, but, so I think it's more of a responsible piece. And I know that it's not an easy decision, but, so.
So, and then Rich, kind of what you were questioning, and if I'm getting these numbers wrong, just let me know, Kurt, but there is $90,000 set aside for asbestos removal in areas that need to be removed, where mechanical stuff is going to cause a problem with that. So there's already, and that's built into the base bid. It's that 597,000, which is set aside for everywhere that it's not technically going to be touched, to remove all of that. And again, like Becky was just stating too. So on my side, it's kind of devil's advocate on this. Is yes, there might not have been an issue, but the roof. Okay, I replaced the rubber membrane and the foam membrane and the rubber coating on that older building 8 years ago. But if the concrete deck cracks or something like that, so I'm looking at, here's all the what ifs that my staff might have to deal with at some point in time. So I'm looking out for the future of my department, and you're looking out for the county, which I 100% get, so.
Jeremy, since you've been here, how much work have you done up in those areas? Would you say?
To disturb the actual coating, probably none in that. But I've redone ductwork, I've redone plumbing. There's a few areas where on the north side of that expansion joint where I've patched concrete on the bottom of that deck where there happens to be no coating. So I've had to refill that because we had some roof leaks on the parapet walls, and then it was coming through on the concrete deck and then leaking into what used to be the judicial area, and then some into the north courtroom, which has a smaller space in between the drop ceiling and the concrete deck. So I have been in those areas, but I've never poked and prodded into what would be removed.
Question, if you have an issue to deal with in that older section where you have to get up there and work with that, what's the process?
If I were to,
If you've got, if you have if there's a problem in the around the ceiling area that we're talking about, assuming the next 20 years, there may be 2 or 3 spots, I suppose, that could easily be needing a
problem.
repair. And so, we're hearing that this is the time to do it. What I'm wondering is, what is the process? What is the, in order to make that safe,
Yep.
what's the process that you're going to have to follow with hired specialist or whatever?
So let's just say that when this is all said and done, one of the areas up there that becomes office spaces has an issue, the roof deck cracks and water's leaking through that concrete deck through the coating that's on the bottom of the roof. At that point, it would be, one, we'd have to pull the people that are in that office area out, plus all the furniture, everything else that's in there, and then hire an asbestos abatement contractor to then come in and do exactly what they're speaking of right now for those.
For that section?
And then at that point, it might just be that one section that we're doing, but then the conversation would still be back to property at that point. Okay, it's a 4 foot by 4 foot square that's leaking, but it's a 15 foot by 15 foot office. Do I just pay to do the whole thing, or do we only paying to do the one little bit? Because if I only do the one little bit, if it happens again, then we're doing the same project in the same area and removing everything, plus the ceilings, all the duct work, all of the hot water piping for the boiler systems, all that stuff has to come down out of that area, which is what's causing the cost of this. It's not just the send in a asbestos abatement, spray it down with water, scrape it, and walk away. Everything that's above that ceiling, including the ceiling, has to come out. You remove it, and then you're putting everything back in. So this cost is asbestos abatement contractor, HVAC contractor, mechanical, plumbing contractors, ceiling contractor, and then depending on if we're doing it after the fact, then you're repainting the areas, possibly redoing the carpets, blah, 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 stuff like that, depending on how extensive the damage is. So now, if it's an area that there's nobody in there, we're not displacing anyone, we're not redoing anything else, we're pulling everything out, doing it once, putting the ceiling back in, walking away from it. Future problems, then we are displacing people and services in that area for X amount of time. And then if you're doing it in pieces, if we're only doing one office at a time, eventually that cost is gonna add up. And that, again, may happen in 6 months, it may happen 6 months after I retire. So that's the variable that you happen to face, so.
So what I'm hearing, it's like going to the casino. It's kind of a gamble. You don't know what the future holds and whether or not you should do it now or wait. I too agree with David over there. Taken away from the highway department, got a little bit of a concern about that. What I was wondering about is there's $250,000 that we put into economic development that hasn't really been earmarked for anything specifically. Could that money be used?
It could.
Just a thought.
Possibly the tourism website as well. We don't have that identified at this point, so that's another area.
Am I up next? Yeah, hearing these numbers, I'd like to move forward with a motion to borrow from the highway department, that D7M005, 402 1.5 million instead of the 18883,531. I make that as a motion.
I'll second that.
Clarification on your number compared to where my brain was going. That 1.88 wasn't all coming from highway. That was, There
Correct.
was-
So
what-
the number here with the added contingency is 1,183,511.
Yeah.
I've only shown what the resolution would say, plus the 700,000. I wanted you to see how I came up with that. So, I'm sorry, Chair Sesha, how much off were you saying, 200,000 or 300,000 off?
Well, I'm going back to making a motion 1.5, so it'd be 383,000 less.
383,000. So,
We found the two, and then we just talked about
right.
the other funding.
So let me just clarify then, hold on one second, I gotta do my math. So that's actually out of the highway fund, then or what we have designated, it's not actually a fund for the highway, but what we had designated would be 800,531 out of the highway. Because I put in the 700,000.
Oh, the 700 should come off that too.
Well, the 700,000 is already identified through our bonding, and so I
Okay.
I put that as a resolution because they're both need to
Oh,
come out.
I see what you're saying.
Be
Yeah, so
identified.
then we would be back to
Yeah, for out of highway, then we would be taking
800.
800,000.
even 800,000 out of the highway.
If we eliminated the asbestos project, we'd be right back to almost zero. So that, here I go again.
It would take care of the asbestos problem, yes,
I know, yours would,
yes.
but we're still taking 800,000 from highway.
And then we would solve the problem with the asbestos.
Can I make just another comment? Oh, I'm sorry, there was a second. So discussion is appropriate
Are you
then.
okay with the change
Okay.
in that, Bridget?
Bridget, you second that, didn't you?
Yeah, Bridget seconded it,
Yes.
yes.
Well, I have a comment, and I don't know if this
You're fine.
would
Yeah.
change this, but to Supervisor Anderson's comment about the economic development and the website, I believe there could be some money that we could utilize there. I think that's a smaller portion, and I think that economic development and tourism picture, I think, is really important for our county. And I see that it will be up and running. I think we're early in the budget cycle yet. I'd hate to get rid of that picture because I think that sales tax portion and the monies that could improve the county make a difference. But I would not rule it out that if later in the year that we haven't allocated it, that maybe something else comes up in this project. So I think it's a good potential in the future, potentially.
And I agree with that. We're just looking for some money, and I knew
Yep.
that money was sitting there, so whether it's now or wait till later or we don't use it, I don't have a problem with that.
Let me get this straight too, so we know where we're coming. We've got 4.188 million, that's with the 700,000 that you took from where? That comes from the borrowing, right?
Yes,
On top of the money we had stashed away.
correct.
So that's, leaves us at 4.1, and we have to get to, if you wanna do the 600,000, we have to get to,
We have to get to the
Five something.
5,122
and then you were talking about taking
and adding, and so what I was suggesting is that we
500,000.
add
Doc,
to
did
the.
you say 500,000, he said?
So Doc
highway?
was saying, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I'm just trying to figure, I just wanna get his number straight so we
Yep.
all know
Yeah,
where we're
I-
going.
I originally suggested 1.5, but then I was incorrect with the 700,000 is already out of there, so we'd go back to 800,000 from highway. And the reason I'm going back to 1.5 to start with, we've already found 200,000, and I felt we were maybe 100,000 over.
We haven't found all 200. Hudson, we still gotta find. I just wanna make that very clear.
Well, you would be willing to
Yeah,
cut some of
we
your
still-
profit out of there, wouldn't you?
We have
I mean, come
potential to
on.
find 200,000.
Hurt you almost family
I
here.
just wanna clarify the discussion, so.
The potential is there.
Can I comment? I'm going to go off on a tangent here for just a second. When this building was proposed, as some of you know, I was chair at that time. My push, though we weren't that far along, was to go to a campus structure here. So we would have two separate buildings, and with the idea that once we paid off this section, that we might at that time consider building a new office section to replace that section. Well, obviously, I wasn't on the board when the vote was taken, so I didn't have a chance to voice my opinion, which is fine. But that put us in a situation where we're stuck with this. We've got this, and we've got to do something with it. And I like that most of you don't want to see money taken out of highway, but we have made such a commitment here, a very long-term commitment. We're planning for this to be here for the next 50 years probably as a combined unit. And we need to deal with the abatement. I think at this time it only makes sense. Is it going to be painful a little bit? I think it is. But by the same token, we're going to be here a long time. The roads we work on today in 25, 30 years aren't going to be for crap again. We know it. I don't know what the replacement, they used to talk about, was it, Audie, 30, 40 years?
30 some 40.
30,
it
yeah.
depends, yeah.
And it's going to set us back a little ways. I understand that. But, the board who was here made a commitment. And we're coming in and almost have to follow through with that commitment, whether we would have agreed with the methodology that we took at the time to do what we did. So I guess I would encourage you to, really seriously consider going with the 800. It doesn't sound as bad as a 1 point something, but it sounds a whole lot better. Thank you.
What we've been handed this ball. That's the trouble. Is that a lot of us weren't here when this whole thing started. So,
Well, and I'm not saying
and I
they did-
agree with you. It's
and
just
I'm not
that
saying they did
we have to
wrong.
make the best of a situation right here. Is what we have to do.
And Audie, I'm not saying they did wrong.
I'm not saying that
They may have made
either.
the best decision ever,
I'm not saying that either.
Right, I know you're not.
I'm just saying is that I just want to put it out there that it's a tough decision for us because, me with highway too, I'd rather never touch that because to me, the roads are just as important as the structures, but this is something we've been dealt and we have to fix this. They started something and we have to finish it. So we have to come up with something. Otherwise, we're gonna have a building that's totally useless.
Well, and it's not, to me, it isn't just the building. To me, it's the place where all of our employees come to work and invest their time, spend many hours of parts of their lives in that building working. And I think it only makes sense to make it as safe as we possibly can for not only our current workers, but the future generations that will use that building. So I would be in full favor of a full abatement as opposed to those 20 areas that Kurt mentioned. And know that it's a good, safe, and sound building for the future.
I'll just add on to that. I agree that, we need to make it whole and right for the employees, but also for the community that come in and out and make them more accessible, these departments, to those people. Because we've all had complaints on that, and it is time to fix that. The only concern I got about money taken from the highway department again is you're robbing money from there. Next year, money will be back in, so it's still gonna put a burden onto the taxpayer. That's without a doubt. So, with that said, before we vote on it, I would like to see written out exactly what we're voting on, where the monies are coming out, so each one of us understand what's in front of us.
Right. I agree with that. Instead of each one of us having our own notes and coming up with our own numbers, have a uniform set of numbers presented to all of us to look at.
Is there a way we could take a break for 10 minutes and do that?
So I was under the understanding we would have a meeting tomorrow. Is that,
Mary was leaving for, but
okay,
there's not been a concise.
Got it.
So we're gonna have missed that part.
okay. I really do think that we were going to see about posting and putting this out for tomorrow morning for a meeting. I think you could still do that if we did it right now and right before our 10 o'clock meeting tomorrow. That would give you some time to digest and us to get, I'll put the numbers back through, because I did give you the numbers, but now I'll give you the proposal so that it's laid out. I'll put that together. I will get that to you by noon today. But if we post it immediately, then you can come back, discuss it before the 10 o'clock. We could even move our 10 o'clock meeting back a little bit if the discussion goes a little longer. But I think it would be worthwhile to just take a little break and take some time so that each of you can go through this a little bit more and determine what you want to do.
That sounds fair. Two things is what happens to the motion that's on the floor, and second of all, could we meet, say, at 9 o'clock tomorrow?
We're already past that time for 24-hour notice for the agenda,
okay.
I
So-
believe.
But it's 24 hours when at all possible.
Yeah.
Can we
If it's
not-
Emergency, you only have to have
Emergency, yes.
short time.
So I think we're close enough. Can I make an amendment to Doc's motion then?
Okay, okay.
My amendment would be to postpone the decision on the motion on the table till tomorrow morning at the 9 o'clock meeting, combined
Is that the
meeting.
best way to do that then?
I don't,
think
yeah,
so.
that's my question. Is that the
think
best
so.
way to do it?
I think it is because you did not have, we were putting numbers together yet, like late Friday, and you didn't have the resolution till this morning. So I would feel better if you could look through that resolution again, and we'll get you those numbers, and then tomorrow, we'll go through that, make that final determination on the numbers.
I'd second her motion.
Good.
What
Okay.
was the
The
motion?
motion was to
800?
postpone the vote till the meeting tomorrow morning.
I'll go along with that, but I mean, what was it, 800,000 or the 1.5?
But that's neither here nor there for this
Until,
motion.
postpone it tomorrow until we have more information and more time to review the documents that we've seen.
And what we'll do on our
The
end is,
motion is to amend the original motion.
But the original motion was, I think.
To
John said-
postpone the motion.
So you get your figures right. It's
Yeah.
not from the last one was 500,000 from highway was your last.
800.
Somebody said five.
I'm still coming up with the 5 too, so
I got the five.
No.
That's the
Yeah.
motion that I made was for the 800.
Okay,
I
okay,
actually made the 1.5, but I didn't subtract the 700,000.
okay. Well,
Can I
that's,
clarify something too, and more clarification? I think the motion was appropriate. His motion will stand until discussion tomorrow morning.
Right.
Then it can be amended to the
Okay.
level that.
Okay.
Okay.
Voted down.
Right. But I have a question. When we talk about voting, we have two committees sitting. So I would like to know if committees are able to vote on it, whatever the motion comes up.
I think,
Both
Susan
of
isn't
them, I
here to help
think.
with that, but I think when it comes to this, each committee has to take their independent vote.
Yes.
correct. But they each. can
Then it should
vote.
be the role of the property committee to vote first,
Right.
and then
send
make
it
a
to
recommendation to,
Right. I believe you're
to the
correct.
exec finance then.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're still, the motion to, I'll call it amend or move this vote till tomorrow morning at whatever time we get set, 9:45 or whatever it may be,
9 o'clock.
9:30?
9.
9 o'clock, okay. Is what we're calling for a vote for now. I think we can vote in unison on this one, can't we?
No, that's, exec finance was the one that made the motion.
Okay, so,
So you'd be the one just to say, put it on till tomorrow, and then, because we never made a motion in property.
okay,
Just exec
so
finance.
exec finance voting on this amendment to the original motion of postponing the vote. I'll say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, it is now amended to tomorrow morning for us.
All right,
It's, postpone until.
so tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I think, yeah.
So you're just gonna leave yours dangling, or do you wanna?
We don't have a
We don't have a
motion.
motion.
You don't have a motion,
We don't have
okay,
a motion out
okay.
there, so there's nothing. I do want to close the 15 minutes of public comment right now, so it's over. But,
And I don't know if this is possible. I still oppose the abatement of, well, for lack of a better, 600,000 roughly. I still believe the risk factor is so low that we would be justified in not doing any more with that at this point, and I will continue to oppose that. So I don't know how we do that for tomorrow morning for voting for this. I'm not quite sure where we and how we go, but I'm just telling you that's where I stand.
Well, I think too, if, it'd be nice,
Because
since you're
then,
at finance.
then we could get away without taking very little or possibly no highway money away.
And I think, Dave, if you could work, I think we'd all appreciate if you just work with Becky and put the figures together the way we understand them. And if we had a couple of options, it wouldn't be bad either, you know, if you can. Yeah.
This is the first I heard it.
So, so this way we'd have a couple options and say, all right, it's not just this way and that's it. I think if we could find a couple places, if you could, you're pretty good about coming up with that stuff, so.
Oh, okay. I think that covers the joint part of the meeting for us.
Is that
So
okay with you, Kurt?
a motion to adjourn our section of the meeting.
Move to adjourn. You don't have a motion, I don't think.
Any questions, arguments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Exec finance is adjourned.
All right. Thank you, guys. Okay, property committee yet. Any other discussion on the plans that you want to, have any questions for Kurt? I did have.
I know.
Because they need to get down.
Yeah.
Jerry told us that
Kurt,
nonchalant.
I got a question for you. I'm not the brightest bulb in the tree here, let me tell you. Why do you, it says, owner contingency, no, is that 50,000? That's for us.
The way it's set up, it's all your money that we have.
I mean,
I
obviously,
know
we
how
know
he'd
that
feel about
relationship is, but it's all county money, right?
Correct.
It is, it absolutely is. I know, I know.
But find out from Susan if that's even possible to do.
That's another thing, I gotta set up a meeting with Jerry.
Unforeseen conditions, design issues, all those sorts of things. So it's really just separating it, like we did before, but the request was to separate this.
So technically, it's just $300,000 in contingency. And truthfully, that's, yeah, and when you remodel, it's always,
I would agree.
Agree with the comment that it would be nice if it was larger when you're remodeling, but we have what we have, so.
but technically, it's 300,000
Correct.
and not just 50,000, I think.
Yep.
Well, that's, it's almost 10%. So then that's, what do they usually put for contingency, about 10?
Well, the overall budget, I mean, we're talking about a $4 million, so it's, you know, it's 7.5.
Yeah, it's 50, yeah.
Yep.
When you got trash, $15,500 sitting in there, is that the cost, or is that's an estimate? And it's not-
It's estimated,
Yeah, so it could be 10,000.
yeah. Yep. It is. No, not in that, correct. Separate number, yep, correct. Yep.
All right. You guys put your mics on.
I'll do the revisions and we'll have that for you guys. Yeah. Yep, I will.
Okay, do you guys, anybody have any other questions on that part? Does he, yeah, do you have anything else for him? Dick? Do you have any? No. Okay, then we'll go on to, number 7, IT. Tim? Wake up. There you go. You guys want to take it? Yes, so we can finish it. Take it out the door. And Dave, I know, stand strong.
I didn't think the ask was gonna take that long.
Morning. Brief update today. Rich has probably been waiting for this for a while, but the fiber is connected for our new EZNet connection into the dispatch. Now we're waiting for the routers to come in. So then the Vesta side of the equation is set. We're scheduled for the last week of May. And then Baycom is also last week of May. So it looks like we're gonna be moving into dispatch in the last week of May. hopefully there's the equipment from AT&T gets in place in time for us to do testing and for dispatchers to be able to roll over there and try out the new equipment, see what's missing. We've met with Todd and we've had several discussions. Right now, the only things that are gonna move from the existing dispatch center over to the other one is the the portal machines. We didn't recreate those, and then the printers will be moving over with them. So that's the only thing we'll have to wheel over there. Both of those, we should be able to set something up so that we can test. Renee's working on that right now. So we finally have an answer to that question.
Good.
I don't know when this is all starting, but first phase is probably my area, which is right above dispatch. So if everything gets agreed on this week, when?
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
State review is our biggest thing.
So what would be the earliest day you would start phase one?
Probably a week from now, a couple weeks from now.
So it potentially, they could be in the dispatch center and have construction above them. So that will be annoying. I was kind of hopeful that we'd get them out of there before that started, but it is what it is. In addition to that, updates, in case you're curious, I've been watching laptop and router and other equipment prices, and so far it's been stable through our CDWG and other providers. Nothing as of yet. Copper does appear to be going up, so like patch cables and things like that are getting pricier, but so far I haven't seen anything too detrimental to my budget. There are some things, there's some shenanigans going on. Software prices, the subscription costs keep going up. I had 30% jumps last year, and now I'm seeing them again this year in spots, and it's out of hand. Also, one of our primary security tool is our managed detection and response solution that goes through the federal agency that's now been doged. So a person who's been convicted or fired for being fast and loose with data and hacking is now sitting on that same agency that provides security for us. So I'm not happy, and I've reached out to my congresspeople about that. That's an important partnership for us. We don't have the resources to monitor our network 24/7, and it's a really good, affordable deal that we get through CIS, and I'm very unhappy about that. We'll monitor that as it goes. I get daily updates on that. On the good news, we had our official first year of our new print services contract. So I met with Bauer and Find. I always have trouble saying that, but I call them BBT. Our black and white printing over the last year dropped 6% from expected, and our color volume dropped 34% from expected, for a total savings of around 21% over prior years and $3,300. That combined with the lease, the total savings versus our prior contract is $20,000 last year.
Good job. Good
So,
job.
and yeah, the real fun starts in year 6 and year 7, because then the savings will be closer to like 50,000. So,
Wow.
really
That's
very
impressive.
happy with that services contract. Staff has been taking their time off lately, and everybody seems fresh, but there are going to be a lot of shenanigans coming up, so we'll be kind to your IT people. Well, I believe Jeremy and myself and the administrator plan to meet almost daily throughout this process. Because it is a renovation, we're going to be running into things much more frequently than we did with the new build. You should probably be thinking about how to present instructions to us as to when you want to be brought in on conversations, what changes need your attention and which ones can we just go ahead and move on, so we flow correctly. I believe we could probably send daily, every time we meet, we can send an update out to the committee if that's acceptable. But we want to make sure we're paying attention to our end as much as we can. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Yeah.
Button.
It'd be an IT guy that tells me to turn it on, isn't it? When they open up the ceilings to do all this work, are you gonna be running new wire in most of this, or can you utilize?
Second floor, we're getting, every drop is being redone. And then first floor, only new drops are being pulled
You'll be
back
able
to
to
the second
utilize
floor.
what's in the ceiling?
We're leaving what's in the wall. We're trying to get away from that first floor closet because every power outage that's been a disaster around here is caused by that first floor closet. It's just not, it's too small for the equipment and it's not, the power isn't reliable. So we're adding this new second floor closet that eventually will become the second data center. So you'll have one over there and then you'll have one in the new building and they'll be redundant for each other. So
Be able to cover, transfer.
So all
as
the
needed.
backup stuff will be over here, and all the primary stuff will be over here. And if something goes wrong, we can pull it from the others. So, and then fewer closets.
Now, what has happened or is happening with the room down in the basement?
That is currently where all our backup stuff goes. It
Oh,
will
you'll
remain
move it up there then?
the servers that belong to IT will be moving up into the second floor, right in the IT department. But it will still house the Aquiture voice recording system for 911, and it will still house the Baycom radio equipment. So it'll still need to be a power redundant space and with proper air handling. It will still be a data center of a sort, but just not one that IT uses as with our stuff.
I got a question for you, Tim. You purchase any, like a lot of laptops every year or tablets and stuff?
Yes.
Do you think, is there a need, with that big tariff struggle? Should we look ahead and get some now or end up paying 125% more? I mean, even take some money out of find some more money so that you wouldn't be paying that high price? Or do you see anything that we should do there?
We tend to replace equipment based on what we put in the budget, the 811, and estimate how many we need to replace that are coming end of life, and then always budget in 3 or 4 that if they fail, they have to be replaced. Certainly, it is a possibility to buy up front, but we tend to try and wait as long as we can because it's part of the budget where sometimes there's a sudden need. And we want to be sure we have enough room to purchase the equipment we need without having to come back to you and ask for more money. And then, like, for example, the sheriff's office, those squad laptops are spendy, and some of them have started to fail, and I wasn't planning on doing that until next year. So now I'm building in the idea that we're going to have to replace a third of that fleet this year instead. So then that changes the dynamic. So we tend to make most of our purchases in the fourth quarter.
I just wanted to ask the
And
question.
I
because
am
it comes up a
considering
lot.
that. I've been bouncing that off my staff, and we've been talking about the possibility of front-loading some of this. But who knows what the tariffs will be if they ever happen at all, so. No one can tell you what they are today, much less what they are tomorrow. so.
Every day they change. I agree with you because they were all at 125 now. Some aren't even at anything, and now some phones are. So I understand. I just wanted to check with you
Yeah, we're considering
if
it,
there's
because
anything
right
that
now
you
they're
thought-
stable.
Okay, good. Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for him? Thank you, Tim. Jeremy?
All right, well, I'm going to start with, since Tim was bragging about his $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50 in savings, that the maintenance department was able to make a $500 profit last month by doing everything that we sold on that auction site with the benches and the file cabinets and stuff like that. It's not often that maintenance actually provides money back to his own budget. I usually just spend stuff, so $500 is, that's pretty good for me. So over the past month here, we've done, I've been working with Bo, who is the new emergency management coordinator. Last week was the statewide tornado drill, which I test the PA system here usually in the mornings between 5:30, 6 in the morning when there's nobody here. But this was the first time it's actually gone into service while the building was active. So that, I think a combination of a soft speaker, the person enunciating from the dispatch center, and then I have to turn the volume up on some of the speakers. But everywhere else, the stuff was heard, but the original announcement was kind of light. The follow-up announcement, everyone heard just fine. But the PA system is working as it should. And then, which I did work with audio architects for when dispatch moves. We do have a few things that need to be relocated from where they currently are to the new center, namely the PA system. And then the dispatch radio will actually be coming through some of the speakers near the sheriff's department. So all that will need to get hooked up once I have a date that dispatch will be complete. So we'll have that all taken care of at the same time. We just finished up some warranty issues with B&B Electric. There was a handful of lights here in the building, mostly in my plumbing chases and in the 2 garages that had failed. B&B ordered those parts. They came in. They've all been replaced at no cost to the county at all. We've had some issues with air handler 4 for this new building. So we're having to, we're kind of playing with the pressures of that building. Inside of that unit there's a bunch of dampers that open and close for when we're pulling outside air or relieving pressure from the building. Pressure got a little too high and bent some of the louvers the wrong way. And then so when it was trying to blow pressure out of the building, it was actually pulling it back in from the exhaust on the roof. And there just happens to be a sewer vent pipe about 6 feet away from that. So it was actually pulling in all of the smell from the sewer vent gas and spreading that out here on the 2nd floor. Ooh. So we corrected that, but it was a noticeable odor here on the 2nd floor here for a little bit. So this week here, we're gonna start doing getting the landscaping up to snuff on the outside. We're just waiting for where I'm gonna be buying mulch from. We have to wait for the road bands to get lifted before they get their first shipment of mulch in. And then, cause I'll just be buying it in bulk instead of buying, 400 bags at Menards or something like that. We'll just buy a truckload at a time, bring it out here and spread it out. It starts today, but not necessarily. The signs on the roads that I need them to be might not be taken off today. They said probably by Wednesday that all the roads that'll be affected by that particular company should be free, and then I'll get my stuff later this week. We are on the 3rd courtroom for the wall panel updates. Courtroom 1 is complete, courtroom 2 is complete, and they're working on courtroom 3 this morning. You might have heard them hammering on the walls earlier. There's still 2 panels in courtroom 1 that will need to get replaced after the replacement because they weren't cut appropriately. When they cut it, now it's still a jagged line, so they'll be back to do that. Audio Architects drilled a hole in a panel about 6 inches off from where they needed it to be, so when they come back, there's about 3 panels that need to be replaced in the 2 courtrooms again, and so fingers crossed when they're done with the 3rd, there's not any left, but we're waiting till the 3rd is done completely before we schedule them all to come back again to take care of the whatever panels they need to replace. If you're interested, we can see if there's any of the courtrooms open when we're done, if you want to see what they look like. They look 100% better than what they were. I'm just going to make some changes to the lighting in there too to help because, it's that down lighting that's shooting straight down, and if you got any sort of ripples in it at all, it really affects how it looks. It still looks better, but it can be improved upon still with the lighting changes that I'm working on doing this summer. We're also going to be helping out at parks here over the next few weeks. Jack has asked us to help come out and start framing some concrete pads that are going to get poured for a new sign out in front of Petrick Park. We're going to pour a new pad for a new, I think it's like a drop box where people can drop their money to pay for the campsites. And they plan on putting a dock down at the lower portion of Petrick Park. So we're going to pour a foundation we're going to frame it all out. And I guess Bob Petrick and some other people that are on the Parks Department will actually come pour the concrete that's being, from what I understand, donated. The concrete itself is being donated and then the time. So we'll supply the rebar, the wood, and we'll frame everything out for them though. This week I've got boiler inspections getting done. Those are just the state certifications that need to get done. But between the 3 that are over here and the 2 that are in the older portion, they're on different time cycles. So I'm actually just paying to get them all done at the same time. So I'm not paying the company to come out every year to do 2 and 2 and then come back for a 1. The same with the elevators, have to get done their inspection next month. They're all going to be on the same schedule too, so that the guy's not coming out twice a year. Because then I get trip charges for each one of those 2, so I might as well just pay a little bit more now to get them done up front, and then I'm only paying 1 trip charge a year. And then I'm going through getting stuff ready for budget, stuff that I'm going to look at that'll be capital improvement stuff that we'll be looking for next year. Some of them are just the simple time frame ones, crack fill and seal coat on the older parking lot, potentially on the newer one if I'm going to do them at the same time. looking at doing some elevator retrofits in the older portion of the building. And then the loading dock in the new building, when and if you ever drive by that, you'll see we made some changes during the construction. And the original plan for that was to just have a set of stairs that came off the loading dock door. But the jail kitchen there's a dumpster right at the bottom. So we did make some changes and we added a ramp to that so they could push their garbage cart down the ramp over to the dumpster instead of trying to push it down some stairs. But now, hindsight, the truck drivers, when they back up, there's no way for them it's a ramp with railings all the way down to the fence. And then so they have to either squeeze between a little hole between the gate and the handrail, which most of the truck drivers don't fit through that little hole, or they have to try to hop over the railing. So we're gonna be cutting a section of that railing off and just pouring one stair, so that the truck drivers can use the stairs if they so choose, and then the kitchen staff can still use the ramp for what they need it for. So that'll be something I did get some prices for, but it's probably just gonna be something that we're gonna do in-house. When we start framing out stuff for the parks, we'll just frame out the stairs and take care of that too. In the older building, we have been trying to get stuff prepped in readiness for the renovations that'll be going over there. So if you ever go over to Becky's office now, you'll see the hallways are pretty bare. We took all of the pictures, those historic pictures that were on the second floor, boxed them up per city and then stored them away. And then we've had some discussions between Becky and I on what we would do with those in the future, whether we put them back up. I would like uniformity if we do that though, so that they're all the same frame instead of, old barn frames and then plastic frames in different colors. And whether that turns into she had suggested taking them and making like a mural wallpaper wall with some of those pictures, or if we take all of those pictures and scan them in onto a thumb drive and have them play on a TV in the courtroom somewhere. They just are in the courthouse somewhere. That's something I haven't really discussed with Tim yet, but something that we're just looking at, because I don't want to get rid of those pictures. They're historic, they're symbolic, but like I said, we just look at something else to do with them going forward. Really don't have anything else. There was nothing catastrophic or anything that happened in the past month, so.
That's good. Yeah. No news is good news.
Yeah, so unless you got something for me, that's all I got.
That's about it. Thank you. Thanks, Jeremy. Kurt, I got a question before. In this thing, it's $597 to do all that, right? Do we take 90,000 off it? Because you had that, didn't you have 90 or 80,000 in the original bid just to do the spot part?
Those are two separate numbers. So the 90 is just the base bid. The 597 is doing all that's not touched. So they are two
Separate numbers.
Right, but in the 590 is that 90,000 for, no.
No, it's not.
Just gotta
I wish it
double check.
was, but it's not.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? All right, nobody has anything. Okay, the next meeting is May 12th, I think it is. No, May 4th. Let's see here. No, May 12th, I think it is.
So tomorrow are we meeting though?
And
Well,
tomorrow,
tomorrow, yeah.
tomorrow at
But the next-
9:30. Yeah.
The next, right? Yeah,
Yeah, what I'm gonna do is the revisions where we showed owner was gonna be providing those reductions, I'm gonna get that to Becky, Jeremy, and Tim this morning, so then that'll be in your number already, so. And then I will plan to be here at 9:30. Did you want me to be here for the board meeting too, or just your meeting?
well, it probably wouldn't be bad to stick around and answer some questions for other people.
Okay,
Okay.
will do.
Will there be a resolution
Yes,
on this matter at that meeting?
yes.
Yeah. That's true. So then the next regular scheduled meeting is going to be the 12th, so you can put it on your calendar, you guys. May,
We went, I know in two different meetings, but with exec finance, we switched to 8. Is anybody interested in being earlier, or do you like the 8:30?
Remember I talked to you about 8 o'clock for the next meeting? If
Yeah.
that's possible.
yeah, I mean, we could switch it to 8 o'clock. I mean, Dick, do
Just
you
always be at 8.
have a problem with that, Dick?
I have no objection. The only thing I would suggest is, and I apologize for being here late. I was looking at my calendar. The only thing I would suggest is that in the future, the chair or their designee of any committee, make sure there's a phone call out to all the board members who are on the committees, so to make sure they're there.
If there was a
I
change,
agree.
you're
If
saying.
there's a change in a meeting, yeah, if it's still the same, you can call me on it anyway, but.
You never answer. No, Tim, I was gonna
Of
ask that.
course, I may
since
not
you're-
pick up if I see your name, yeah.
I got a quick, Tim, could the county send us a text? Everybody looks at their phone for texts, you know, that if there is a change like that, because not everybody pulls their computer out every day. But can you set it up so that we get a text? Or can they set it up? I thought I asked somebody, and I can't remember who it was, and they said you couldn't do it because it's something to do with security or something. Is that possible? Or for like Mary's office or something?
If we got a information request, it'd be difficult to comply because we don't have a way to track the text. So I think I'd have to run that by Susan.
Well, the chairman, I can just put all of you guys on that group text and just send it out. So
Yeah, that would be.
So maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
From now on, if we ever change it, we'll make sure that, but next month, do you guys want to change it to 8?
Eight's fine with me.
For eternity. Okay, we'll meet on the 12th at 8. Okay, everybody happy with that? I'll make sure I tell Renee so that tomorrow, she'll be here tomorrow about the change of 8 o'clock. All right?
Renee probably won't be here tomorrow. She's in New Mexico.
Oh, she is? Oh, I'll text her. All right, does anybody have anything else? Okay, we've accomplished everything on the agenda. This meeting is adjourned.